This is Hannah from Hall Beer Shop, and you're listening to Daftaboutcraft.
Daftaboutcraft is sponsored by Hall Beer Shop, based in Stourbridge in the West Midlands. You can find a huge selection of craft beers in store and online. Check them out at hall-beer.com.
Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.
Welcome to episode 27 of Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast. Can't believe this, including our 3 bonus episodes. This is now our 30th episode. That's some achievement. I'm not sure we ever thought we'd get to 30. Anyway, I'm Dave D, and I'm joined as usual by
Dave B, who's just realising that we've done 30 episodes as well. I hadn't twigged that at all. That is a nice milestone.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
This was our sort of lockdown project in March 2020, and we're still here, still doing it, and it's great, isn't it? Anyway, we've got a great episode coming up for you. We've got an interview with a local brewery to me, Infinity, from the outskirts of Birmingham, for a chat about how their business is going and what they're hoping to achieve in the future. And what else have we got, Dave?
We are back on the Hall Beer Drink Along. We've got one of those for everyone to enjoy, and I'm really looking forward to this one because not only do we have 3 different styles of beer, which is always enjoyable, it's, for me at least, 3 new breweries. So there's loads of brew to me in this for me and you, which is great.
Yeah, it's all going on episode 27, and let's kick it off now as we usually do with our first feature. It's Brew to Me, where we grab hold of a beer from a brewery we haven't tried before, and over to you, Dave, to kick it off as usual.
Yeah, so this Brew to Me is actually quite an exciting one for me because I'm hoping we'll also get a guest out of this one already, because I've found a new fun game where I go on Google and I just Google microbrewery and I'll enter a county. And it's actually an incredibly brilliant way of finding some breweries which I've never ever heard of. And it's just a case of I'll pick a random county, I'll have a look, takes up 10 minutes of my time, might find something, might not, might have something to come back to. And it led me to Pinker's Craft Brewery, who are down in Weston-super-Mare. And what happened was I went on their website. They got quite an interesting story, but I won't give too much about that because, as I say, I'm hoping head brewer himself will join us in the future to talk to us. And I've already talked to him because his name is Scott. And if you go on Pinker's Brewery and you want to get some of their beer, you can WhatsApp him, which I thought was brilliant. So I dropped him a line. I said, I was after some beer. Could you help? We had a lovely chat, and I have their current range. I said, okay, explained what purpose of wanting these beers was. And these beers, by the way, are £3 each. So very much on the...
That's good value, isn't it?
Yeah, affordable end of the spectrum. And he said, the ones our regulars like is the Western Coast IPA. And it is a 4.5% IPA. Don't know the hops. Says on the back of the can, I've got subtle tones of stone fruits, citrus fruit, and coconut. And it's got toasted coconut in it as well. There's a little bit of... It's not quite desiccated coconut. There's a little bit of a coconutty end to it. It's actually a really nice fruity nose. It's quite a deep colour.
Yeah, yeah.
It's beyond the orange. It's sort of burnt orange, isn't it? It's probably even beyond that. So the toasted coconut is definitely there to taste, which can be a bit divisive because I'm not a huge Sabro fan. No. And I'm not a desiccated coconut fan either, particularly. You know, Bounty's in the celebrations box.
I love a Bounty. I remember, because me and Dave used to work in the same office together pre-COVID. Then we worked at home for the same company. But anyway, there used to be a Tesco's near where we worked. I used to go out occasionally when I was in the office and get a few chocolate bars to spread around the team. If you came back with Bounties, nobody else would want one, so you could eat them all to yourself. If you like Bounties, that's great, but if you don't, it's
like the scene off Gavin and Stacey where they open their chocolates, don't they? Yeah. And they're so, you got the Bounty, and everyone's But there is always someone who likes the Bounty. And I'll say this for this beer, the coconut makes it stand out.
Okay, so it works.
It does work. I could drink a couple of pints of this, and I'm really surprised. I wanted to like it because, like I say, I sort of had a bit of a conversation, so I was sort of probably leaning slightly to, I want this beer to be good. I want it to be so I can be nice about it. But I can genuinely be nice about it, even though it's coconut, which I would normally say no thanks to.
Okay. Pinker's Brewery, did you find out a little bit about them, how long they've been going, that sort of thing?
So they actually have quite a similar timeline to ourselves, which makes me think they'll be quite interesting to talk to, because they were all set, locked and loaded and ready to go 3 days before COVID started.
Oh, wow.
They're still here, so they've obviously made a go of it, and that's sort of the extent of my knowledge. But from what I've seen on the range of beers I've got, they're all sort of punching in this 4 to 5% ratio.
Right, yeah.
I think I've just got pales. I've got a milkshake IPA as well, which is a raspberry flavoured one. I don't think they're sort of, or perhaps they're not yet, or they don't want to be doing, crazy stouts, crazy dippers, things like that. That's fine.
You want to build up to that sort of thing. Well, not everybody, but some breweries do, don't they? Find their place in the market and then experiment.
I'd say this is enough of an experiment, actually, in its own way, and I can see why people would go back for it, because common complaint of mine would be you can have X, Y, and Z's pale. It's nice at the time. Can you pick it out even a week later? Probably not. I'll remember this because it's just something as subtle as doing this toasted coconut. And it doesn't beat you over the head. It's nice enough. You're having it every time, but it never goes sickly.
Yeah. If you have a beer like that that's a little bit different to the norm, they do tend to stick out, don't they? I can remember talking about Infinity, who we're talking to later. They've got one peppercorn pale, I think it is. And, you don't find many of those around, so that sticks in their minds. And it's similar with the coconut.
This is good. I like this a lot.
I hope mine can live up to this.
Are you in the UK or Europe?
No.
You've been travelling the world of late.
I'm going a bit further. I'm going right to the west side of America.
Oh.
We're going to Portland, Oregon, to Cascade Brewing. Never had one of theirs before, of course, because that's what we do in this feature. We try beers from breweries we haven't tried before. This brewery have actually been going since 1998. Best part of 25 years. Which
would make them really at the vanguard in not only sort of craft, but the US scene as well, which in its way is arguably more developed than the UK. So they're sour specialists. They moved over into sours back in about 2005, 2006. They moved then into barreling and aging, and back in 2014 they actually moved site. They got to a second site because they'd got so many barrels. They've actually got 1,600 barrels that they use. Wow.
To put that into context, I went to Pastore recently in Cambridgeshire. They're very big into the barrels as well, and I counted all their barrels, and I think they had 30. These guys have got 1,600. How about that?
This is quite interesting then, because this is craft, but now is this mass produced then, arguably?
Well, the size of their warehouse where the barrels are and they distribute from and all that sort of stuff is 23,000 square feet. Apparently, Portland is very well known for its microbreweries as well.
Yes, it's definitely. I remember when I was looking at the dream of making an American road trip or something one day, Portland was high on the list.
Okay, so what we have here is what they call an easy drinking Northwest Sour Ale. It is 6% and it's called Honey, Ginger and Lime. And you won't be surprised to find out that that's exactly what's in it. Honey, ginger and lime, oak aged sour with honey, ginger and lime. This is what it looks like in the glass. So deep.
Oh, it's actually quite similar to mine.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Lovely sweet honey on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you taste it, the sourness comes in, ends with the lime. It fits together lovely. That's excellent.
Was there ginger as well?
Yeah, like a little bit of heat from the ginger as well, yes.
Oh, so that might, the more you drink it, that might just increase that little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. Just on that second mouthful there, I could feel it a bit more back in my throat. Yeah, that is nice. They say it's lightly sour with a kiss of honey sweetness, and yeah, I'd agree with that.
So how did you manage to get hold of this then?
Well, I looked in the fridge and it was there.
That old chestnut.
It was just there. Not 100% sure. I really need to come up with a system of identifying where these cans have come from. But I actually got a few of them, a few Cascades, so I'm looking forward to those off the back of that, because that's really good. As you'd expect it to be, they're obviously sour specialists. They've been at this game for 15, 16 years on the sour side of things, so they're really well experienced, and it shows, because that's a sort of complex beer there, but very refreshing. Hits the notes. Excellent.
This is one of those not rare, but certainly uncommon occasions where we have two big successes, it would seem.
Yeah, that is superb. Win-win. Tick all the boxes. Big thumbs up for Cascade and for Pinkers.
You're listening to Dave B and Dave D on Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.
So it's guest time on Daftaboutcraft, and we're really happy to get hold of Chris, founder, brewer, everything at Infinity Brewing in Birmingham. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, how are you doing? Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's good. It's kind of weird because I saw Chris just recently at BeerX in Liverpool and we were chatting there. It reminded me that I'd met him some time ago in one of the lockdowns. He popped round to my house with some beers, and I mentioned then about coming on the podcast, and it's eventually come together. So we're all here. Fantastic.
Yeah, we made it. Yep.
We've got some of your beers to drink, but before we go into beers, why don't you tell everybody a bit about yourself?
Sure. Yep. As you said, I'm Chris. I am originally from Dumfries in the southwest Scotland, but I obviously now live in Birmingham with my wife Tammy. And me and Tammy run Infinity Brewing, which we launched not last December, the December before that. So that would be 2020, I think, if dates are correct.
That was in COVID times then, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, we started all the plans to set up the brewery in September 2019, and we registered with HMRC, and we sort of started the process. I don't know if you know, but our brewery is basically the converted utility room of our house. So it's pretty tiny brewery. We're probably the tiniest brewery in Birmingham. And yeah, so we did all that. We got through the sort of, HMRC registration and all that sort of stuff, all the paperwork. And then basically COVID happened and we were like, oh, should we put it on hold, or, shall we carry on? And we thought now, we've had so many delays. I mean, we actually registered the business name in 2016.
Oh, wow.
When we lived in Shrewsbury, and, we registered the business name. We were in the process of planning our wedding, and we were in the process of buying our first house. The wedding went well, but the house purchase took a really, really long time, unfortunately, a lot longer than we had sort of thought it would. And then by the time the sale went through, we were sort of settled in our jobs, and a few other things got in the way. And it kind of the brewery plans took a bit of a back seat for a little while. And then eventually, a few years later, September, in 2019, we sort of were like, right, let's do this. We registered the thing and everything happened. And then COVID happened, and we were like, oh, what are we going to do now? So, yeah, so we were like, no, we can't just allow this to be another delay. We're going to have to plow ahead. And yeah, we're here. We're doing okay, and we're still here anyway. So that's the main thing. So
it is interesting, Dave, because a lot of people we've spoken to started breweries during lockdown.
It does feel like it sort of was a good escapism almost, but it sounds like you guys the situation was slightly different because this was in the works for a while. Moving one step back, what got you to the point where you wanted to start a brewery? How did you sort of get brewing and everything?
Well, I first started doing home brewing in about 2010, 2011, when me and Tammy first lived together. We were living in Shrewsbury. It was sort of around the time I was getting into real ales and I was getting into craft ales, and the sort of craft scene was starting to really gain momentum in the UK. And and I started like most people. I bought a sort of homebrew kit and did some fairly sort of mediocre beers, which were all right. They were drinkable, but they weren't anything fantastic. And from there, I kind of learned a lot more. I got really involved in a couple of online homebrew forums, learned a lot from other homebrewers, and from there I kind of took the step and made my first like all grain kit from some plastic buckets and some kettle elements, which to be honest was probably a bit of a fire hazard. I sort of consistently started making decent beer, and I was like, actually this is, and everyone I gave beers to, all my friends and family and stuff would give them beers, and everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe you made this. They all thought it was sort of just buying beers and repackaging it or something like that.
Which is high praise.
Yeah. So I was like, well, maybe I've got something here. Maybe I'm actually all right at this. So we sort of talked about it, and both of us kind of were a bit fed up in our jobs, and we wanted to do something a bit more different, a bit more exciting, and then obviously one thing led to the other, and we were like, right, let's I actually bought the kit that we use now, which is a 1-barrel brewery. I actually bought that like before we'd even thought about doing sort of it as a job. It was my hobby turned into a bit of an obsession, to be honest. I had 2 garden sheds, and they were both packed with brewing gear and, all sorts of brewing stuff. So yeah, it was a bit of an obsession. It still is, I suppose. It's just I kind of, it's just something I'm really passionate about, or really I've got a lot of enthusiasm for, and want to, if you can do it if you can do something like that for a job that you really find really fun and you're passionate about, then
absolutely,
yeah, then we try and go for it. So
are you still working full-time in a job and doing the brewery, or is it just the brewery now?
No, my other job, my other hat is I'm a musician, so I play the bagpipes. I play at weddings and funerals and birthday parties and all that sort of stuff. So other people with my other hat will know me as Chris the Piper, and that's my other sort of business, I suppose. Yeah, I've been doing that for quite a while. I mean, I've been playing the bagpipes since I was about 13, so I've been playing them for quite a number of years, 25 years or so. When we lived in Shrewsbury, I'd always done, I mean, from the age of about maybe 15, I grew up near Gretna Green, which is obviously quite a wedding hotspot in Scotland. So I used to do a lot of wedding bagpipes and stuff when I was, younger, and then kind of any family wedding or things like that, I would be asked to play. And anyway, yeah, and then Tammy's her job. She builds and runs websites. That's her sort of profession. So she built me a website, and started getting work through that. And yeah, that kind of, so that's my other job. So I mean, it's not a full-time job, but it is enough to sustain us. So we've got the brewery, and I do that on the side, I suppose, as well. So
I love it. That's our first bagpipe player on the podcast, Dave.
It's a wonderful mix of careers as well.
Yeah. It's not the usual route for people, but it works. It works for me.
If it works for you, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Of course, yeah.
So when it comes to the beer, who are your craft beer influences? Whose beer do you drink?
Whose beer do I drink? I mean, I drink loads of beer, I suppose. I mean, it used to be that people had a favourite brewery and they just drink that all the time. And now, there's not the same level of sort of brand loyalty, I suppose. But there is so much choice out there now that, you can pick and choose. But I mean, recent beers that I've had that I've really been impressed by, I had a beer called If It Wasn't for Bad Luck by Black Iris. It's a Imperial Salted Caramel Mild, and it was absolutely amazing.
It's good,
to be honest. It was really nice. I recently had Imperial Bitter from Attic. I think it's called 4X.
4X. My wife loves that.
Again, I really thought that was a really good beer. Anything by Colonel. I love Colonel, the brewery. They everything they make is amazing. It's a Lopian brewery as well in Shrewsbury. We actually, where we lived in Shrewsbury was actually, they were literally around the corner from us. So, when I was doing home brewing, we went on a brewery tour there, and I got chatting to the owner, Wilf, about my home brew, and he was really encouraging. He gave me a lot of tips and a lot of advice and stuff. He was a really good person to know. So I really rate Salopian breweries. They have a lot of really good beer, because they've kind of got a traditional sort of real ale side, and they've got a kind of craft ale.
Yeah,
their black label craft ale sort of side as well. So, I mean, I'm really into dark beers like stouts and porters, and they've got a stout called Polygraph, which is, it's really good. So, yeah, I would rate that. So, yeah, if you try something like that, I don't know if you're into dark beers or
we're into any beers. Any beers,
yeah, yeah, fair enough.
So, how many different beers have you created since you started?
We started with an IPA and a stout and a brown ale. That was our first 3 beers that we launched. We then we had a West Coast IPA. We've got a KV IPA. We've got a stout, which is very popular. We've just brought out a New England IPA called Nimbus, which I think we've
got it here. We're just
cracked it open. A couple of cans. So. Yeah, in fact, I might do the same while we're talking. But we've got a fair few. If it was up to me, I would just brew stouts all the time, because that's my favorite beer. Can't really get away with that, unfortunately. Can't just make the same beer all the time.
Do you sort of strive to make beers that will stand out in the market? Because it is a very saturated market now. There's so many, you look at the shelves in your bottle shops, and there's so many pales out there, for example. What do you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've looked around at the market, obviously, and we've sort of seen what other breweries are brewing, and we try to sort of stay on trend a little bit, but then also we don't want to just brew the same beers that everyone else is doing. So we've got a few beers coming up that we plan to bring out soon. I just brewed a wee heavy the other day, which is fermenting as we speak. So that hopefully that comes out nice, and we can bring that out. We've got a couple of ideas for saisons that we've got some test batches to do. Yeah, we've got a lot of juicy pale ales planned. I think that's kind of something that a lot of people want as well. So you have to sort of get the balance between what I want to brew and what people want to buy, I suppose. And that's,
you've got to get the money coming in, haven't you? That's the thing. So to do that, you've got to make what people are going to buy. I tell you what, this just cracks open this Nimbus. It's quite distinctive, isn't it? It's a very distinctive taste to it and smell in a good way.
Yeah, hopefully. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. What hops are in this then? Save us trying to guess.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You want to guess?
How many hops are in there?
All right, there's 1, 2, 3. No, four hops. Sorry, 4.
Okay.
I'll go off piece slightly, and I'll say Amarillo is in there.
Okay, interesting. No, there's no Amarillo.
Okay.
Mosaic.
No Mosaic either.
I mean, Citra feels like a layup, so I'll take the layup. So
you've got that one.
That's fine. That's why I went off piece to start with, because I figured that was sort of always going to be a gimme.
There's something very fruity about that.
I'll say Talus.
Oh.
Talus? No, it's not.
Because Talus is starting. Okay,
Talus is starting to
pop up more and more.
To see it more and more.
I mean, the bittering hop was a very little bit of bittering hop, but that was Palisade.
Never would have got that. Would have been low down.
That. I mean, you won't get a lot of that, I think, because that's right at the beginning of the boil. But so Cascade, Cashmere, I think is probably the one you're. Cashmere's got a very pineapple-y kind of.
That's what I get a lot of that. Yeah,
flavors. Citra, obviously, got, and that's them all. So Palisade,
interesting.
Cascade, Cashmere, and Citra.
What a shocking performance that was! We got 1 out of 4. That's awful.
We did actually in this one you're drinking. We tried out a different. There's these Lupomax pellets, which are different from your sort of average hop pellets. They're similar. I think they're very similar to the sort of cryo hops. So they've got all the sort of plant matter removed. So it's just the lupinoids, sort of from the flavor compounds rather than any of the other plant matter. So you get a lot more distinct and fruity. You get all the fruitiness without any of the rest of the flavor.
I think that definitely comes through for me.
Yeah. The thing I got as well is it tastes quite sticky. Does that make
There's a lot of oats in this recipe, so that'll give it a lot of body and a lot of that sort of.
That's lovely.
I like that. That's really good. You must be pleased with how this has come out.
Yeah, it's really I really like it, and I think we took this to the Halton Turner Beer Festival.
How did it go down?
Really good. Yeah, really good. And everyone was raving about the Nimbus. So it went down really well, to be honest. So yeah, really pleased.
I bet.
Just glad people are enjoying it. That's what you want as a brewer. You want to make beer that people like. So
and also your beers are getting out there more because they're appearing in more and more bottle shops in the Midlands, bars as well. Certainly
across Birmingham, we're in quite a few places in Birmingham. We're into a couple of other places a bit further afield, bottle shops. So slowly sort of creeping our way out there. And that's, we're just trying to kind of. I think for us as well, we've got a very small capacity, so we can only brew so much at a time. So we don't want to overreach ourselves and then overpromise, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, not be able to fulfill.
If we try and go everywhere at the same time, we're not going to be able to meet the capacity. So we're trying to sort of do that in a planned way. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on your capacity because you mentioned that earlier. If you're doing it out of the utility room and the 1-barrel kit and everything, what's your sort of logistics of turning around new beers and everything? It must be quite intense and
it is a bit. It's the maximum we can brew really is about 170 liters. So
wow, okay,
that's what we usually do is we put about half of it into kegs and the rest into cans. So we kind of split it that way. We have actually recently bought some pins, like some casks as well. So some of our beers are going into cask as well. Not all of them. Obviously, things like these, the Nipas and stuff wouldn't go into a cask, but the more cask, ish beers stouts and IPAs and stuff would go in there. So we've got 2 fermenters, so really we can brew 2 beers at a time. We've got one bright tank, so it is sort of like a queuing system sometimes, where we've got one in, one out. One goes into the fermenter, and then that goes into the bright tank, and then we sort of, we have to have a quick turnaround. So it does take a bit of planning and a bit of forward thinking, I suppose, just to kind of make it all work. To be honest,
I'm just imagining it being in the utility room. There's sort of a washing machine and stuff.
Yep.
Clothes everywhere and all sorts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only thing that's left in there from the utility room is the washing machine. Everything else, it is a dedicated brewery now. So. Right. But it is small. I mean, it's about, I don't know, it's probably about 2 meters by 5 meters. So it's
compact.
It's quite a small space. So we do have to be quite creative. I mean, we put up a lot of shelving because we have to be very creative with storage and, making sure we could fit everything in, to be honest. So, it's workable, but it's not, sometimes it can be a bit frustrating when you're sort of tripping over yourself and,
I'll bet.
Sort of trying to get things done. But I mean, it works, it works for now. And obviously longer term, we want to, obviously if things take off a bit more, then the longer term, we would be hoping to move into a unit or somewhere like that, so we can expand and etc. So that will be more longer term. So
what's the end game? Where do you want to sort of see yourself in 2, 3, 5 years?
Ideally, what we want to do is move into a unit somewhere, upgrade our equipment and our capacity, open a tap room. I mean, that would be in the next sort of, few years, I suppose. That if all goes well, then that's our plans. From there, I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it goes, I suppose. Kind of try not to think too far ahead. We kind of got to focus on where we are now, and so. Hopefully if things go well, that would be the plan. In the next year or so, we'd be moving into a unit. And I mean, I suppose we're in the sort of positive position at the moment where, the brewery is ticking over. It's not quite making enough money for us to that to be our only income. So, but we do have the other income that I was talking about earlier. So we have that position of, we don't have to rush to pay the bills if you know what I mean. So it's if we move into a unit, obviously we've got extra rents to pay and extra rates and all that sort of thing, so that that brings a lot more pressure to make a lot more money. So
I've been reading some horror stories recently about electricity bills in brewery units. Of course.
Yeah, we've got an electric brewery, so it's not cheap to run, unfortunately. And with the prices going up, it's a bit of a worry. I was reading the other day about wheat prices, which have been going up huge. I mean, the supplier we get them from, the last time we bought them, it's literally 3 times the price what we paid the last time we bought wheat from there. So it's a bit of a jump. So.
Presumably, breweries will be able to pass this cost on to the consumers.
I mean, I hope so. I think as prices go up for everything, you would assume, people should assume that, prices of things like beer is going to go up as well. I suppose the worry I've got is if people on a lower income, who don't have that disposable income, they might, if they've got to choose between craft beer and putting the heating on or something like that, they're not gonna be able to afford that sort of choice. So
and do you regard, because we've talked about this, Dave, do you regard craft beer as a luxury item?
I think it is, I suppose so. I mean, I think it definitely is a luxury item. I mean, I think you probably don't put that in with your everyday shopping.
No.
When you go craft beer, you go to a separate bottle shop or you go to a separate bar or pub or whatever to get that. So I think it is a luxury, but I think for some people it's sort of a luxury that they wouldn't want to give up. They'd probably give up other things first, and then craft beer. I mean, I don't know. It depends on the person really, and how much money you have, how much disposable income you've got, I guess. So, some people might have to make that choice, unfortunately, which is sad really, because that means that they're not going to be able to enjoy the beers that they loved before, perhaps.
It's a sobering thought. So the bigger boys, perhaps, they might have it where, you get the cans at £10-12. Now, that is definitely a luxury. But if you're feeling a bit like, I don't want to keep spending £6 on a can, you can always go find someone new, and they might be charging £3, £3.50 a can. But if all the costs have got to go in and they're trying to start up, I guess they're going to suddenly have to be £4.50. And then it's like,
The bigger breweries as well will have a lot more buying power, so they'll be able to get better
Yeah.
they'll be able to get better
Yeah, buy in
deals
bulk and that.
from suppliers. Yes, for the likes of breweries like us, obviously we still have to buy in quite small amounts because we don't have the space, we don't have storage space to store. Whereas big breweries will buy a pallet of hops or a pallet of grain. We buy it in 20 kilo bags, so, or 25 kilo bags, whatever. So obviously there's the cost that comes along with that. But I think a lot of consumers know that, I don't think people are naive to that idea that, if you want a artisan product, then you've got to pay for it. It's craft beer is, it's not just beer that's pumped out, by the barrel. It's made and crafted, and people are willing to pay that, I think.
Yeah,
so
that's the way we always approach it. Well, Dave mentioned there about, people looking at pricing the next level down. Your cans are incredibly reasonably priced, aren't they?
Yeah, well, we try to, we don't want to, it's difficult really. Where do you place yourself?
Yeah.
Because we're a new brewery. We don't want to come in and be charging huge amounts for a can of beer when there's other breweries that have been a lot more established that are got a name for themselves. So I think it's how you place yourself in the market. I think we've priced ourselves where we think we're making enough of a margin and we think it's reasonable for the customer. So we have to kind of look at that. I mean, I suppose if price, if the costs of everything keep going up, then we might have to rethink that and start adding a little bit extra on. But we'll have to sort of review that as things continue, I suppose. So. And
just so our listeners know, Nimbus that we're drinking now, how much is this on your website?
That is $3.60 a can.
It's worth every penny and more. Go to some of the big websites and it'd have a bigger name on it, and I wouldn't blink at paying between $5-6 for a can of that because it tastes like it. It tastes like it. To me, it tastes like an old school Polly's in a way, and I mean that as hopefully entirely as a compliment.
Yeah, it does actually. It is a pop compliment.
What was the inspiration for the name? Sorry, while we're talking with this.
I mean, both of us are into science and we're quite sort of geeky nerds into space and science and all that sort of stuff. And we wanted something that wasn't linked to an area. We're based in Birmingham, but we want to be from Birmingham, but we don't want to be just that. We don't want our name and our identity linked to Birmingham, I suppose.
It's not just local beer for local people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we want to be something that is distinct and recognizable. Hopefully, we're thinking about all sorts of different kind of space terms, and if notice all of our beers have got usually science based or space based names. We decided that's the theme that we want to kind of roll with. We're not like a themed brewery as such, but we want to kind of have a bit of interest, interesting names. Tammy designs all of our cans. So, she's got that design sort of flair, which, I think she's done a great job on all the cans. They look really good. A lot of people have mentioned to us that, they like the design and they like the cans. So I think it's something that we wanted to be a bit different, not linked to just one specific area. Or, some breweries like to identify themselves with, the town they're from. And that's fine. I'm not knocking that at all. That's absolutely, that's also a decision that if they want to do that, that's up to them.
Just talking about the geographical thing, it must be quite exciting because you're in an area with a really healthy craft scene, aren't you?
Yeah, Birmingham's craft scene is top notch, to be honest, and I think it's something. We were chatting to someone at the Halton Turner Festival the other day about. It's something that we really, as a city, should celebrate a bit more because I think it's not really talked about that much. And there's loads of great breweries in Birmingham. I don't know how many people, know that really. I'm not sure. If you live in Birmingham, you probably know about it, and if you're into beer, but I'm not sure further afield.
I think you might be right, and I think we'd be surprised that a lot of people probably in the area don't know about them all as well.
Yeah, but I suppose that's partly down to us as breweries to get ourselves out there and make people know about us, I guess. So that's our job. Just on that though, I think it is a good, it's a great place to get involved in. I mean, we had a brilliant time at the festival the other day. It was great to meet, there's 6 breweries there. It was really good to meet all the other brewers, just to have a chat about how, their experiences of brewing. And
that's the great thing about these festivals. It is a sort of chance to compare notes and just pick people's brains on things as well.
And perhaps you get to play on some bigger kits. Is it the chance to do some collabs and stuff?
You never know. I mean, hopefully that will come along, that opportunity. I'd jump at the chance. So yeah, definitely.
That would be good. I think it's fair to say we've both been blown away by Nimbus there, Infinity's New England IPA. We've just about finished it, and you're kind enough to send us your Imperial Tonka Stout, Maelstrom it's called.
Yes.
Well, I haven't got work tomorrow, so I'm more than happy sipping my way through a nice 11% stout. What about you, Dave?
I'll be up at 6.
Be up at 6, okay, well, just have half.
But I don't like to see beer go to waste, and especially not now I've had that first mouthful of it, because that is lovely. Let's hear from the brewer first. People don't need to hear from me about it. So when did this beer come into birth and everything?
So this was brewed in October last year, and it was conditioned in the bright tank and then into kegs for 4 months or so in a keg, and then it was canned from that. So really the recipe started you might have had our Event Horizon Stout. So
I've got it sat on a shelf over there.
So it's literally, well, it's pretty much that recipe, but times by 2, I suppose, with a few tweaks here and there. And then it's got tonka beans in it, it's got vanilla pods in it, and cacao nibs as well. So it's fairly loaded with extra good stuff. I hadn't had a tonka stout before making this. I hadn't really had any, and I tried a couple before I made this, and kind of was like, ooh, I really like that flavor. That's a lovely, tonka flavor. I really like that. So I thought we're definitely gonna have to make something out of this. So.
Well, I've just had a first sip. That's excellent, isn't it?
This hasn't essentially been barrel aged, has it?
No.
But it tastes like it could have been, doesn't it, Dave? I think it does. Anyway,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's got a lot of dark malts in it, so you're getting a lot of the sort of bitterness and a lot of the smokiness and stuff from the dark malts. It's got a lot of roasted barley and a lot of black malt and chocolate malt. Yeah, you're probably getting a lot of the flavors like that from it. So yeah, I think the cacao nibs, we roasted them. We had raw cacao nibs and we roasted them in the oven for about 15-20 minutes to give it a bit more of a
The house
roast.
smelled lovely.
Yeah, it did actually. Yeah. and yeah, so before putting that into the fermenter, we roasted them. I think the sort of interaction between the vanilla pods, the tonka bean, and the cacao nibs has really brought that kind of rum.
I know exactly what you mean, both of you, because if somebody gave you that and said, "Oh, this has been aging in rum barrels or whatever," you'd believe it, wouldn't you? You wouldn't blink twice.
We should have put it on the label.
Just seriously though, talking about putting stuff in barrels, is that a road you'd like to go down in the future?
Yeah, you know what? I was chatting to Roberto from Cult of Oak Brewery last week, and he does, like, most of his beers are barrel aged, and he was talking about, I was like, I'm fascinated by that process. I've never done a beer. The only beers I've used, you can buy the sort of oak chips that you put inside. It gives you that sort of character, but getting the actual barrels and aging beers in a barrel is definitely a route I would love to try out. I mean, I think at the moment we don't have any space at the moment
that can wait for the unit.
You've got to store the beers. Yeah, so until we've got more space to do, to mess around with that sort of stuff, because you're talking some of the beers, some of the beers that Roberto makes. I mean, he ages them for 2-3 years, in a barrel. So it's not a short process. You've got to have space to put them in and leave them to age in. So yeah, something that I would definitely want to try, but unfortunately at the moment we don't have the space. So
when I saw this was an Imperial Tonka, I did think I liked Imperial Tonkoko from Brew York, but generally I find when people start doing coffee stouts, it can be very one note. You get a lovely coffee hit, and if you like coffee, great, but you've then got to like 440 mils of it generally.
Yeah, got you.
And I don't. I find it gets a bit dull, but I can't level that criticism at this, because as I say, I've never had a Tonkoko where I've got rum and raisin out of it, and every time I just makes me want to keep going back to it. Also does not taste like 11%.
I was just going to say that.
Superbly smooth.
Are you sure that's 11%?
It is, yeah. It is deceptive. I think it could be a very dangerous beer if you didn't look at the label and had a couple of those, you might be.
No, it's really, really good beer. Really good beer.
Thank you. Cheers.
And if people want to get hold of your beers, obviously we talked about your web shop and the bottle shops you're in and everything, but what are the social details so people can get hold of them?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can go to our website. It's infinitybrewing.uk. That's where our web shop is. You can buy direct from us. If you live in Birmingham, we deliver to B postcodes for free every Saturday. Or there's a couple of areas where we do charge. I think we charge about £2. So like the further away areas, but most B postcodes are free. And usually once a month, we do a free area a bit further afield. So we do like a DY postcode free delivery, or a Coventry one, or somewhere like that. So we try to sort of spread it around a little bit.
I have a feeling I'll be putting an order in fairly soon for.
I'll give you a heads up when our next free DY delivery area delivery week is. Yeah, you can get, our beers are in Sturchley Wines. Well, we're in various sort of bottle shops in Birmingham. Sturchley Wines has been one that's been super supportive of us. So, big shout out to them. I think they're a really supportive place that really sort of champion local beers, and they've been from the very beginning, since I went in with our first beers. That Christian, who runs it, he was well up for supporting us, and he's had our beers in there for ages. So obviously, buy from us direct, or you can go to one of those places. We've got beers in Rad Beer, which do sort of nationwide delivery. I think, those are probably the best places to get our beers at the moment. Like I said, we're slowly making our rounds around different places, so we'll try and...
That's great that you're in somewhere like Rad, because people anywhere in the country can now get hold of it. And I think me and you, David, both urge people.
If you're not lucky enough to have Sturchley on your doorstep, you've taken me there once, Dave, and I still think about it and I want to go back. So, if you can't do that and you can go to somewhere like Rad, do place an order or do it direct, and I don't think you'll regret it.
Yeah, thanks. You can order from us as well. We do have a courier, so, we unfortunately do have to charge for that because it's not cheap, unfortunately. But yeah.
Look, Chris, thank you very much for joining us. I think it's fair to say we've been pleasantly surprised, if not blown away, by these beers tonight.
Thank you.
Time for a bit of this now on the podcast. It's the section that we call Tried and Tested, where we reveal to you our favourite beer since our last episode. And I'll go first this time, straight in with a beer from Pastore. I mentioned in Brew to Me that I visited their tap room recently. We went through quite a lot of their beers, and I think we saved the very best till last. And it was a beer called Bambaccioni. Now, if you know Pastore, you know they're famous for their sours and mixed firm beers. And this is a 10.5% smoothie sour, which is smoothie sour, the style. It's also known as pastry sour. Blueberries, banana, maple, cinnamon and vanilla. Now there's a lot going on there, but my goodness me, it worked well. A lot of the time you have a beer with maple in it and the maple takes over and it's horrible, it's sweet, it's sickly. None of that. This was perfect. So perfect, we brought home 3 cans. Had one of them, still got another 2 in the fridge. Can't wait to have them. Really excellent beer. And for those of you who are wondering, Bambaccioni is Italian for bachelor, and the guy who runs Pastore lives with his mum and dad. And runs a business with his dad as well, and his mum was helping in the tap room when we were there.
Well, that's a lovely little story to the beer as well.
Yeah. Right, over to you, Dave.
So this is the part of the podcast now where if you are happening to have a drink while you're listening to us, probably have a swig from it now, because they often get a mention, and this episode is no different. But it's me talking about Copper Beach for the first time in a little while. But the reason I'm talking about them is I got to have a beer called Family Tree. Dave sent me down a little care package, which included the Chubbles, which we did for the bonus episode. And he'd sent down, and he sent these down because I have had COVID, and I think I'm still recovering from it slightly. But anyway, I never lost taste or smell, which was great, because when I felt ready enough to have some beer again after a bit of a break, this was one of the first beers I had. So all beer's going to taste good, but we're huge Copper Beach fans, but this is the best beer I've had from Dan. It's so soft. It's such a great New England IPA. It's 5.5%. Now, I don't know the name, although I can pretty much guess why it's called Family Tree, because Dan is a proud new dad.
Yeah, it's a tribute to their new addition to their family, Delilah.
Exactly, which is also a wonderful story, and it's a wonderful beer to match it. I got my hops confused. I don't mind holding my hands up. I thought it was Sabro. It's not. It's Talus, and it's so soft. That's the thing I took away from it. It's such a soft New England IPA.
And I think Dan himself is really pleased with the beer, because I know that since then he's rebrewed it and he didn't change a single thing. And he's a serial fiddler. He can't leave it alone.
He's a tinker, isn't he?
He's a real tinker. I think he knows he's got a really good one there, and he hasn't touched it on the rebrew.
If you can get hold of it in their web shop, if it's available, do so. If not, wait for the next rebrew and get hold of some, because honestly, you won't be disappointed. This could be a Neon Raptor. This could be a Pressure Drop. It deserves to be in that kind of category. It's a beer which is really, really good. So that is Family Tree from Copper Beach.
Get in touch with us on Twitter and Instagram at Daftaboutcraft1.
Well, it seems like ages since we did one of these. It is a drink-along in association with our sponsor, Hall Beer Shop in Stourbridge in the West Midlands. hall-beer.com if you want to get yourself onto their website. Now, hopefully you've got hold of the 3 beers we've been mentioning on our socials, and you bought them from Hall with that all-important 15% discount. And you're going to crack them open as we open them, drink them as we drink them. Now, we do the drink-along on every second episode, so watch out on our socials in the weeks ahead for the next one. And you can grab your beers again and join us next time, hopefully. But for now, we've got 3 beers. 3 beers is usually our sort of go-to figure. And we've got 3 very different ones from right across the spectrum, Dave.
Yeah, so hopefully there's something for everyone here, and we're going to go up in percentage. So we're going to start right at the bottom, and it is nearly right at the bottom, actually, certainly within the craft beer world. Now, there seems to have been, to my eye at least, a little bit of a resurgence in the table beer. I'm personally all for it, as long as it tastes of something and it's not just watery. But I think brewers have caught up to this and cottoned on that they just can't chuck out a very weak beer.
This is it.
And we have got, arguably, the new kids on the block who have made some waves. And this is Baron. And Baron Brewing are based in Hertfordshire. I think I'm speaking for both of us when I say they snuck up on us.
Well, yeah, they've released 18 beers so far. So this is one of the 18. From what I can tell, their first release was last October. So 18 beers between last October and April. That's quite some going, isn't it, for a new outfit?
That's about 3 a month. Well, yeah, that's a decent turnout.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? They've got a 1,000 litre brew house. Fair size to start off with.
Yeah, relatively sizable, isn't it?
You know, for a brewery just starting out, yeah.
So we're trying their table beer called Finger Puppet, which weighs in at 3%. And the back of the can tells us it's the small brother of Sock Puppet. So it's a highly hopped 3% table beer. We've got 4 hops. We've got Idaho 7, Mosaic, Eldorado, and Chinook.
All US hops, and all hops that give you tropical fruits and a little bit of spice. So I've sort of got in my mind what this should taste like. You've had a sip already.
Just while Dave's pouring his out, I'd like to say there's definite Daya influences here for me, because the cans are 500 mils, which is a nice touch.
The first thing is that can size, because you don't find many 500ml cans in the UK, do you?
The other is the artwork, which definitely has some Daya influences for me. The artwork is by Max Wild, and it's good. It's really effective. It's nice artwork. I've seen a couple of their other cans. Artwork on a white background, which again screams a bit of Daya to me. And the beer probably is a bit Daya.
The beer as well is Daya for me. It's very soft.
So what did it match what you thought in your head?
I've got in my mind there's certain hops that I'm not a big fan of, and probably because I've had beers over time with these hops and they've been a bit too much. They've dominated in a way that I didn't like, and Chinook is one of those, and that's in here. I think it works really well with the other hops in here, because that pine and spice it's there, but it's not allowed to take over too much at all.
I get a really grassy nose. I don't mind that. I get a bit of spice and I get a bit of pine. The fruits for me are quite muted, but I'd expect that because of the ABV.
But they're definitely there. So just as a quick run through, Idaho 7, pineapple, berries, Mosaic, tropical fruits, berries, stone fruit, Eldorado, apricot, tropical fruits and citrus. All those hops are bringing something similar to the table, aren't they? And I think mixing together very well. There's nothing dominating. It's a perfect balance. It's not knocking us out because it's 3%. It won't do, but it's nice. I could easily drink quite a lot of that.
Yes, punches above its ABV. The hops definitely complement each other very well. I wonder if I was, well, I am a betting man, but I don't think I'd place a bet on this. But anyway, I'd say the Idaho 7 might be the smallest ratio, but for my palate, it's the one I get the least of and what you're saying I should be tasting. I feel there's a nice bit of Mosaic, a nice bit of Eldorado, and I get a nice bit of Chinook without any of them being overpowering.
Yeah, and really, that's what you want in this style of beer, isn't it? It is exactly what you want.
It's a really nice beer, actually. I'm with you. I could drink a few of these quite happily. As we sort of touched upon earlier, I've been laid low with the dreaded COVID, unfortunately. Although it seems, unfortunately, a lot of people are having it at the moment. But that's by the by. We're not a current affairs podcast in that sense. We're a craft beer podcast. So while I was at home coughing and spluttering and feeling a bit sorry for myself, you were up in Liverpool. And what were you doing up there?
Yeah, so we went up for, I went with, mentioned him already, Dan from Copper Beach, and also Dan's father-in-law, John, who is a big part of Copper Beach as well. So the three of us went up to Liverpool to have a little look at Beer X, which is an annual trade jamboree where the Society of Independent Brewers hand out lots of awards to different people in the industry, and you get a chance to look at lots of fancy, shiny metalwork that you can't afford for your breweries. But also there's lots of beer there as well to drink, which was great. But what was also lovely is that there's lots of seminars and talks and this sort of stuff going on. And you can take part in those, or you can just sit and drink or have a look at the stalls or whatever. So we did a bit of everything. Dan made some great contacts. One thing that sticks in my mind, I mentioned it on our Hype or Tripe Chubbles episode, was the off-flavour tasting we did. That was really interesting. And we did another one as well, which was something that we've actually already done on the podcast, which was a beer and cheese pairing session.
Was it as good as ours?
It was really reminiscent of ours. It made me think back to ours that we did just before last Christmas, and made me think we should do another one.
Oh, definitely. Did they crack out the J.W. Lee's barley wine?
There was no barley wine, but what there was the export stout from the Colonel, which was paired with a Stilton. Oh my God, what a combination.
Oh, okay, yeah, I could see why that'd work.
What a combination that was.
Because some people, and I suppose that makes sense to, perhaps we talked about this when we did the JW Lees, but some people, they have Stilton and fruitcake, don't they?
Yes, yeah, that's what we did talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, which I've never had. I kind of want to try it.
I can now see how that would work. Because this was great. And what was really interesting is that Copper Beach John, he likes his beers, but he's not really into extremes of beer. So when the Creek Boone was served up, we thought, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun watching him deal with this. And he absolutely loved it.
Well, there you go.
When it was put with some soft cheese, it was just awesome. Out of this world. Really good. Really good. People don't really realise that you, as we touched on before, that you can cheese and beer really well.
We compare food and beer really well. And I maintain that there will be, at some point, and it's already sort of happening, you're going to get beer sommeliers. The Cicerone thing will start to really take hold in the UK, I think, and you're going to go out for a meal and certain places will say, okay, what would you like to have with your meal, because we can pair that up. And you see with these tasting nights now, they're increasingly popular, aren't they? Where it's not just cheese, there'll be cheese nights, there'll be curry nights and things like that, where they're matching it all up. So it is coming together.
I'd be all over it.
Oh, absolutely. You also, something you did mention to me about Beer X, is you got to meet in person a previous podcast guest who was celebrating a big win of their own.
Oh yeah, this was awesome. So there was awards both evenings at Beer X, but we didn't hang around for the awards. Copper Beach was actually shortlisted for an award last year, but not this time. So we went out, had a few beers. First night we went to Head of Steam, where there was a Brew York takeover. But it was the second night that really sticks out, because we went to Carnival, who we've had on the podcast, which is great. Mm-hmm. And it was St. Patrick's night. And one of the guys, we had Dom on the podcast from Carnival. the other part owner is Irish, so he welcomed us very, very warmly. It was a tremendous welcome. So I'm there, and Dan and John chatting to the guy from Carnival who showed us around the brewery, and then we were sort of thinking it's getting a bit late, we should go. And then who walks in but Rob from Briarbank Brewery in Ipswich, who we've had on the podcast, and he's looking very pleased with himself. So I went over, and he just won a gold award for one of his beers at Beer X. So, of course, he was on top of the world. So we stayed for another couple of hours, had a few beers. It was fantastic just to chew the fat. What a nice guy. What a lovely guy.
And he's made the local news down here with that. And I believe it's I want to say it's the Mocha Porter.
Mocha Porter. That's right, yeah.
So well done to Rob. Huge congratulations. He was a great guy when we had him on. You enjoyed the beers when we had them. I was really proud and pleased that, he's flying the flag for Suffolk and Ipswich, and it shows the reward, because honestly, if you do ever come down my neck of the woods and you are in Ipswich and you want to go somewhere, go to the Arcade Tavern as well, but go to Briarbank and just get the sense of the scale of kit Rob's working with. Yeah. Because you can see it from the road and it is tiny. And to be chucking out the beers he's doing off that is really testament to him as a brewer.
And his passion it came across on the podcast, and it comes across in real life. My only regret was he hadn't got his trophy with him. He'd taken it back to his hotel room. I wanted to get a photo of him with his trophy, but he was over the moon, and I was too, to meet him. To be honest, it was great. Excellent.
Well, I think we both in the camp of really enjoying Finger Puppet. I'm going to seek out more Baron. Hall have more Baron. I did make sure to get another one chucked in my box when I had some come down. So I'm looking forward to trying that to see what else they can do. And I would just say, if you like Daya, I think you'll really like this.
Yeah. And like you say, Hall I think they've got about 4 different Barons in at the moment. So it's well worth checking that out. And I've got to say, a massive big up here to Hall, actually, because they're doing something here that not that many bottle shops are doing, in that they're trying to get different stuff all the time. There's a certain amount of fatigue within the craft beer industry sometimes where, everybody's got the same beers all the time. And which is great, being the sort of people we are, we're checkers of beers. We want new stuff all the time, don't we? But Hall are doing a great job of getting some different breweries on board and getting some different beers out there. And our second one is a good example of that.
Yeah, so now we're jumping from Hertfordshire all the way out to Germany. And we are having Sudden Death Brewing Co. Now, interestingly, there is some interconnective tissue to us and this beer, because the beer was canned at Frau Gruber. And Frau Gruber, for those of you who've been listening for a long time, will know we've had them on an episode. I want to say it was in sort of COVID-y times, because for a long time there wasn't any Frau Gruber in the UK, but it has started to make a bit of a reappearance again, which is good news. I'm guessing, therefore, that Sudden Death, bit of a cuckoo brewing.
What it was, they started off...
brewing, not cuckoo brewing.
They started off with a 50-litre kit at home, did some experimenting with that, and then when they got the beer to the standard they wanted, they started gypsy brewing. But this month, they're opening their very own brewery and pizza and beer pub. So sort of think Dig Brew. They're opening the German
exactly
Dig Brew.
Thought. Wow. And where are they based in Germany, for people who might be able to make it over there one day?
It's northern Germany.
Northern Germany. That's like a southerner north of the Watford Gap.
If you just head to northern Germany, you'll find them.
You'll find them. Yeah, they've got billboards and stuff, presumably.
But what is interesting about these guys? It's 2 guys, Ollie and Ricky, both ice hockey fans apparently, and they've spent quite a lot of time in America pursuing the ice hockey side of things. But of course, while they're in America, they got into the craft beer side of things, as so many future brewers do, don't they?
Yeah.
And they've come home with all these ideas. They want to make this beer, that beer, and now they're doing it.
That sounds the kind of story that we like to tell. I mean, ice hockey would be a minority sport over here, but in mainland Europe, it's a lot bigger business, isn't it? And in America, obviously, and Canada, it's huge. So that's interesting. But also, just sounds interesting pair of guys. But more back to the beer.
I've got to say that anybody that puts a skull on a can that looks like Skeletor from He-Man, that's a big plus in my book.
Well, it's a bit Skeletor meets Jason, isn't it, from the Halloween movies?
It is, isn't it?
Although
it's a cross, isn't it?
I'm not very good with horror movies, mainly because I do not do horror movies. They scare the pants off me.
Well, you don't have to be scared by Skeletor. I mean, it does look very Skeletor-esque, doesn't it?
That does look Skeletor, actually. I can handle that. But yeah, horror movie knowledge is thin.
Yeah, mine is not much thicker, to be honest. So anyway, this beer is a 6.5% double dry hopped IPA, and it is called Once Upon a Time in Eternia. Got to say, it smells amazing when you open the can. Flavours burst out at you.
Yeah, it's a very sweet nose. Not sickly sweet, but it is a sweet nose.
If you ask me how strong that was, I may say a bit stronger than 6.5%.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. And it's interesting. It's double dry hop. I don't know about you, but I expect to go, when something says double dry hop, I usually expect big fruity hit to start, and then the dry hop kicks in on the back end. But for me, it's the other way around.
I don't think that detracts from the beer. It's very nice.
Just going back to the can art quickly. I mean, I could be wrong here. Perhaps it's whoever's designed it. But have you noticed it says glow in the dark down the bottom? Do you think the can glows in the dark?
I don't know. Let me put the can under the table. It is quite dark in here, I'll tell you. Hold on.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's a shame.
Although the Skeletor's face is actually raised and sort of yellow, so maybe if you looked at it for long enough in the dark, you would see it. I'll have to try that later.
Not having it next to my bedside table.
No, don't put it there.
That will scare the pants off me. I like this. There's definitely notes of Frau Gruber in there for me.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, when you've got breweries who spend time going around brewing elsewhere before they open their own place, because presumably every place they go to brew, they're learning more, aren't they? They're getting experience with different kits and also picking up little bits here and there from real experts of the game, and then bringing that to their own beers.
Obviously, the German stuff, the traditional German stuff, which is a bit like us having, sadly, you know, your Carlsbergs, your Carlins of the world and things like that. That's always going to dominate. Like, people in Germany will be very naturally, because they're lucky, will go for their pills and their wheats and stuff, because it's high quality, but it's their day to day. This is really impressive because I think it shows that this kind of stuff can coexist.
This is exciting, isn't it? We've had the Brew to Me beers that we loved. We live in these beers. This is great. It's
going really well. Now we've got one more to get to. This was your choice.
This isn't for the faint of heart, is it, this one?
No. Another new brewery to us.
Very striking artwork. There's an eye in the middle of it. It's a bit Big Brother-esque, isn't it? So this brewery is the Salama Brewing Company, I think you probably pronounce it, and they're from Finland. And they've been going since 2018. It was set up by 4 craft beer-loving friends. And this beer is called Norse.
Which would have a very different meaning in parts of England, I'm sure.
I think so, yeah. This is a breakfast imperial stout, weighing in at a mere 11%. It's interesting, actually, because I do love a stout, but I think they're beers to share because I've got a whole cupboard full of massive stouts, and I never want to drink them on my own. I always want to share them with someone.
Well,
but we are going to drink this one on our own.
We are going to, yeah. And I think Salama would like you to share it because I mean the can was brimming. Quite how they managed to actually get the lid closed on it.
Yes, I didn't know you could get that much inside a can, but they've done it.
It flew open. So, word of warning: if like me, you happen to have any white clothing nearby, maybe don't open this can near it because it did sort of hit it a bit.
So what have we got in here then, Dave?
So we have got a barrel-aged breakfast imperial stout, which is, so they say, brewed unconsciously under joyful possession of a demonic vortex. Quite what that does to the flavour profile, we'll see. But this breakfast of champions will kickstart any day. Bourbon barrel-aged with coffee, granola, cacao, orange peel, and vanilla.
Lots going on here. Anytime you mention orange and a stout, everybody's going to make the obvious assumption, oh, it's a chocolate orange stout. Now, they haven't said that, but that's what I've got in my mind. So let's see if there's any trace of that. And it's a difficult one to pull off, as we know.
It certainly doesn't smell like it's going to have any in there.
Well, there definitely is orange there to taste. That's very nice. What do you make of it?
I'd say we've been spoiled in this drink-along section because the first 2 beers I really, really loved. I thought they were probably the strongest 2 beers we've had on this section for a long time, if not ever. I thought they were really, really good. That one, it's okay for me just because I don't get much of the flavours coming out and it's very much a barrel-aged stout.
You put your nose in the glass like I've just done. take a little sniff, and the barrel-aged element comes out straight away. That's there for you.
That's what I get, but I don't get much of the subtlety of anything else.
That's all I get on the smell, but on the taste, there's a lot more then comes through for me. Yeah, I like that. That's really lovely. I'm not saying I necessarily get everything that is billed on the can there, but if I didn't know what was in it and somebody said, yeah, this stout's nice, have a sip of this, I'd be all over it.
Yeah, okay. So on that basis then, I reeled off what we got there, do you get coffee?
For me, it's more chocolate than coffee.
So not really coffee, granola. I mean, that's a difficult flavour to pick, I would say, in fairness.
I think probably that with the granola, that's where your body is coming from.
Okay, yeah, fair. Cacao, no, that's arguably, that's your chocolate.
That's your chocolate, that's there.
Yeah. Orange peel.
Yes.
Interesting. Vanilla.
I need to take another sip. For me, that's very subtle, and it's probably overtaken by the other flavours in there. It's probably there somewhere.
I think for me, as a first experience at the brewery, I'm not put off. They can obviously brew. They know what they're doing. It's just one of those where when people do breakfast stouts, I'm always slightly wary straight away because I just find it's an excuse to be big coffee and not a lot else.
But that isn't big coffee. In fact, I can't get any coffee. I'm not sure I'd want that for breakfast. I want that for pudding, and then some cheese and biscuits after that.
I know what you mean. Actually, there isn't masses of coffee. You know what this reminds me of? Really, really, really vaguely. Mm-hmm. If this was next to when we had Cloudwater's Persistence is Utile a long time ago, and this heard a whisper about how good that beer was, it would be. It's trying to get there, but it's not there yet.
No, but it's on the way. Well, on the way, I'd say.
It's on the way, and that would be my comparison, I think. Poor man's is harsh. It's not a poor man's Persistence is Utile, but it's not Persistence is Utile. But it's in that ballpark, but it is a way away from it.
Interesting.
I don't mind it. I think you're more enamoured with it than I am.
I think as part of this drink along, gradually creeping up the spectrum from 3% to 11%, I think it's a lovely way to end.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people will get more out of it than I do.
And just going back to something you just said, you mentioned Cloudwater. We were going to talk about your little trip to Arcade Tavern and to their Cloudwater takeover. Yes, I did, in a stance which literally no one cared about. I stopped drinking Cloudwater for a time just because I didn't really like the message that the brewery was putting across, but I still respected the fact that they did very good beers, but wanted to just keep my money in my pocket because I was just irritated by certain messages coming out of the brewery. This was around the sort of supermarket time and all that sort of stuff, wasn't it? And the link with Brewdog brewing the supermarket beers at the Brewdog plant and so forth. It felt like there was a lot of hypocrisy going on, dressed up with a lot of words, and I didn't really appreciate it. That message does seem to have changed, I would say, and the quality of the beers never dropped off in that period, from what I understand, and certainly on my return to having some Cloudwater, it's still very much the case. So yeah, Arcade Tavern, one of my locals in Ipswich, had a takeover. They had a really good range, actually. They annoyingly they did have a Troubles on. They had Discovering Pilsengriss, which I meant to go get, and then for whatever reason did not have that day. It had a couple, but I did have a couple. I had one on cask, which, while it wasn't an amazing beer, I will always say if you do get the chance to have Cloudwater on cask, it is worth it, just because it really brings home how cask can soften a beer off really nicely. Like, this wasn't the best cask one I've ever had from them, but it was still a nice beer just because it was on cask. And then I had Green Shoots, which I didn't actually want a pint of, but I did end up with a pint of it, and it was £10. I always wondered who bought these £10 pints. I did have a witness, because I specifically said, can I have a half, please? And then a whole pint turned up, and we both got quite excited because we thought, oh, I'm going to get half a beer for free here. Did not. Got a question. Was this before or after you were in the director's box at the Ipswich Town match? It was after. There we go, look. We were very restrained. And was Ed Sheeran in the box? No. We were going to try and get him on the podcast. He wasn't there. What a shame. Yeah, so it was after that experience, and it was a great day. It was a really enjoyable day. I'd never done anything like that before. It was a really enjoyable experience, and we finished it by
by going. We didn't finish it by going there. Actually, we did go to Hopsters and had a couple of beers in there because I haven't been in there for a long, long time. But before then, we went to this, and yes, I did have a pint of green shoots, and a pint of green shoots was £10. Was it worth it? No, but it was still a good beer. Good. It was quite interesting. I think with that beer, there was an experimental hop in there, promises orange flavours, actually, having just been talking about that. And it did deliver on that.
What was the... Oh, so it's just a number then, the hop?
It's just a number at the moment, I believe. It wasn't that sort of fresh orange juice orange. It was that sort of ripe orange.
Right.
To go with the tropical kind of thing. But you could sort of taste that there was something different there, and it was delivering that flavour. So it's quite interesting. And yeah, just good to see. Like, their selection was really good. If you did want a pint of the Chubbles, that was £12.
Well, if you paid £10 for a pint, you may as well pay 12.
But the £12 pint actually feels more reasonable because the cans go for about that anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah, true.
Whereas Green Shoots, I think, is more like £7 a can. Well, which I suppose, markup isn't too bad. But yeah,
But what is amazing now is that you can go into a pub in Ipswich and get a pint of cask Cloudwater.
No, it's great. It is really good to see.
What is really interesting, we've got a little place around here called the Bird in Hand, which is it's a backstreet locals pub, and they've had a lot of craft on cask recently, including some Cloudwater, and it has absolutely shot out of the place. So you've got these people who would usually drink the local best bitter from Batham's or Holden's and whatever. All of a sudden, they're drinking Cloudwater and Daya and absolutely loving it.
I think craft on cask is belting.
You get something good. It's awesome.
Oh, absolutely! It really adds quite a lot to it. Not to say that you can't have the same thing with stuff on keg, but I do think there is something about having stuff on cask. It's soft and it makes everything full. Now, all right, that can disguise some sins. You can probably get some averagey beers that might get a bit better on cask, but then, if that's the only time you ever have it, and you have it like that, it's not the worst thing in the world. And
how fantastic for little backstreet pubs to be able to give their regular something different, like Cloudwater or Daya or Northern Monk. I think it's tremendous.
And it says a lot, actually, if that stuff's flying out. But the appetite's there, but people perhaps don't even know that they had the appetite for it.
Well, I keep missing it. Whenever I go there to try one of these, they've sold out and then on to the next.
You get Bathams.
So I get the Bathams, yeah. But it's fascinating that there is an appetite even amongst traditional...
What you'd think would be dyed in the wool, like, no, I want my pint of mild or my pint of best. And...
They're loving it. There was a black IPA flying out of the place the other day.
Was there really?
Yeah. It's incredible. Which
shows
you there is maybe more and more appetite for craft beer than perhaps some of us think. What we should do at this point is just mention hype or tripe, because this is now the point of the podcast where we would be going into hype. But what we did on our last episode, when we did our Chubbles, was we did a standalone, and we're going to do another standalone because it went down really well. People enjoyed it. So in a week or so's time, you'll be able to download another episode where we have a mild special. I'm a bit worried about it. Dave's all over it. He can't wait.
Part of the reason is we have so much good stuff, but we don't want to just put it all in one episode. We like to keep things coming out to keep people listening, and hopefully you enjoy it too. If you don't, do let us know. We can always change things, but hopefully you're enjoying having just sort of more than one episode dropping every 3 weeks. We're sort of getting into this habit, and it might continue. We'll see how it goes. But the thing with the milds, everyone's been doing milds. I've having just had a conversation about sort of traditional cask and everything, I love a good mild. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I was quite happy going into your village pub and things like that. And if it had a mild
on. Before your time, mate.
Very much so. But I do like a good mild. Not all milds are created equal, just like any other beer, but I do like a good mild. And I've long suggested that craft brewers should get hold of it and give it a bit of a tweak.
In fairness to Dave, if you go back through our episodes a long time ago, he was championing the mild and saying it's the next big thing in craft beer. Obviously, some people listen to him because it's everywhere. Every craft brewer is now brewing a mild. So we thought, right, we're going to do a little mild special on Hype or Tripe. We've got 2 boxcar milds.
And they have actually done something really different with it. For those that might not know, clue is in the title with a mild. It is mild in ABV. It's dark beer, so think of a porter, think of a stout, and then if you're Dave, for example, you might think watered down, because it will be traditionally 3-something%, but that doesn't mean it can't have depth of flavour. Look at how a table beer works.
Well, yeah, as we found out earlier. Yeah, that's true.
But Boxcar have turned it on its head, and they did a series of 3. Now, I couldn't get hold of all 3, but I did manage to get 2 of, and what we've got are the double mild, so that's 6-something%, and then the triple mild, which just sounds mad, which I think is about 9.5%.
In actual fact, it's anything but mild.
But it'll be really interesting to see what they've done with it, and it'll be sort of a discussion on milds as well, because Boxcar are by no means the only brewery that have been doing milds.
Oh, everybody has got a mild out. Every time I open my inbox on my emails, I've got an email about another mild from somebody else.
This bonus episode will not only be sort of a discussion on mild, it is going to be trying to, much like when Dave has tried to win me over with sours, which has worked.
Yeah.
It's taken a while, but it has worked. So this will be sort of my crusade.
This Boxcar bit will be good. But anyway, so download our special episode coming out in 1 or 2 weeks' time, our Boxcar Mild Hypertripe special. And if you want to join in the fun and you can get hold of those milds before our episode comes out, get them and you can drink them with us.
Yes, and well, I mean, you can really make a session of it and drink the 3 beers that we have enjoyed on this drink on session, which I would still say is probably one of, if not the strongest trio of drink along beers we've had.
Agreed.
Really great stuff. So we had a table beer from Baron, which I think you'll probably hear from Baron a bit more on here.
Yep.
I think they'll be appearing soon because we seriously impressed with that. And then next we upped it a gear and went to
Sudden Death from Germany.
Yeah, which again, really nice beer. The Frau Gruber influence was quite clear and finished it off in style. Certainly for you, a little bit less so for me, and I'll stick to that. But that's not to say it was a bad beer, just wasn't quite ticking all my boxes, but I think it certainly ticked all yours, Dave.
Yeah, 100%.
And that is the Nors Salama Brewing Co. all the way from Finland, barrel-aged breakfast stout.
And this is all thanks to hall-beer.com, our sponsor, who get these drink-along beers in for us. Check out their website, watch our socials for our next drink-along beers, and grab them with a 15% discount by popping in the code DAFTHALL. And talking about codes, we have got for you a special code from Chris at Infinity. If you want to get hold of some of his beers, get onto the website, put them in your basket, put them all in your basket, because what we've just had were fantastic, and I think you'll enjoy them as well. Put them in your basket, apply the code DAFT10, and you can get 10% off his beers for the next 2 weeks. So make sure you do that. I'm sure, just like us, you won't be disappointed because those beers are tremendous.
Who knows? Hopefully you can get it before Easter, and then you've got some lovely new beers to try over Easter weekend.
Daftaboutcraft.
You've been listening to Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast, sponsored by Hall Beer Shop in Stourbridge in the West Midlands. Check them out at hall-beer.com.